Okay, so today guys we'll learn how to make a blazer, a notch collar blazer jacket. Very simple and detailed tutorial. Very simple. No pattern paper needed, direct on fabric. Very simple. So you can see here on my table I have this material. This is a trouser length material. So you can see I'm trying to fold my fabric into two. We are going to first of all cut out the front. Pay very attention, okay? So now how much fabric are you going to place on fold will be determined by the biggest part of your measurement, which is the hip. Okay, so here first of all I'll go ahead and mark out my length. So go ahead and determine the length of the top, your blazer jacket, the length you want. You can make this a dress blazer jacket. Okay, so but here I'm working with the top. So here after marking my top length, go ahead and add extra 1.5 inch to 2 inches for hemming allowance. Remember, we are going to be turning this over. So after that, go ahead and mark all your basic measurements. This is my chest line, then I have my under bust, then the waistline. So here is my waistline. Just go ahead and determine all this. So this is my waistline, then the length or the hip. So now, so I'm going to label then the chest line. So this is the waistline, the under bust and the waistline, sorry. So now after that, you go ahead and do what? And mark out 2 inches. You can use 2 inches, you can use 1.5. So here you can see here I've initially marked out 2 inches, but later on I reduced 1/2 inch as we progress. So here is my 2 inches. So you can use 1.5, you can use 1 inch depending on how wide you want your lapel to be. So this determines the width of the lapel. So now you can see I've marked a straight line. So after this, now the next thing is we are going to, from this line, from this 2 inches line that will serve as the center front, you are going to input your shoulder measurement divided by 2, our normal basic bodice. Don't forget to add 1/2 inch of allowance for the joining of the sleeve. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and do what? And connect the lines. So this is our armhole. So from here I'll come down by 1/2 inch. So this is my 1/2 inch. Then from that 1/2 inch I'm going to determine the midpoint. So you're going to determine the midpoint, then you are going to mark. So this is my midpoint. Then I'll come in by 1/2 inch from the midpoint. Then I'll go ahead and do what? Measure my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll mark it like so. Then I'll connect. So I'll just go ahead and connect from this shoulder line down to the armhole. So this is my armhole curve. In this case, I'll be using a presence dart. I'll be using a presence dart for this particular blazer. So this blazer, you can use any dart of your choice. So now let's work with our neckline. So I mark 3 inches of neck width and 3 inches of neck depth for the front. Don't forget 3 by 3. This is a standard neckline for the front. So neck is width, the neck width is 3 inches. So I'll just go ahead and connect like so. So I'm going to make a round. So these are basic neck. Then from here I'll go ahead and connect the shoulder slope. So from the shoulder here I'm going to mark my bust point. So this is my bust point. Okay, so I'll go ahead and extend all my lines. So this is under bust, then the waistline. So I'll go ahead and extend the lines. So after that, the next thing is to input our nipple to nipple measurement. Okay, so just go ahead and mark from this line. Don't forget, from that line, from the 2 inches line, mark your nipple to nipple measurement starting from the bust point down to the hem or to the length of the dress or the top. Okay, so now you make a straight line. Then from the waistline you're going to mark 1/2 inch on both sides. Remember, this is just a presence dart. It's not a bustier. We're not using bustier for this, just a normal presence dart. So you can see the way I'm connecting the dart legs. So from the bust point you're going to connect it into the 1/2 inch you came in like so. Then after that, from here you're going to extend. Make sure you extend your armhole by 1.5 like so, or 2 inches depending. You can still shape it at the end of the hole. The reason is that for you not to have shortage. Okay, so here I extended by 1.5. Then I use a slight curve to connect it. Don't let it to be too curvy. So here, after that, this is our presence dart. Okay, if you want, you can use your shoulder dart or your normal dart. So here I marked my bust circumference divided by 4. Then I marked my dart intake. Then I marked my sewing allowance. Okay, so this dart intake here, that's what I replaced. Then before marking my sewing allowance, then we're going to the under bust. We are going to repeat the same, as well as the waistline and the hip line. Just go ahead and mark all these measurements. Always make sure you put your dart intake, measure whatever you use for the dart, replace it before adding your sewing allowance. Remember, we are cutting directly on fabric, so we have to add all the allowance we needed directly. So there is no need for transferring. This is not pattern. So here, all the allowance you know you are going to be working with, make sure you mark it directly. So this is it. So this is for the waist. So the hip circumference divided by 4, all right, plus your dart intake and your sewing allowance. If you don't want the jacket to be so tight, you can go ahead and add 1/2 inch of ease. Okay, so you include everything in your sewing allowance. So this is what you see me doing right now. Okay, so guys, so now you can see at the end, the side corner, I went up by 1 inch. I first of all went up by 1.5, but later on I adjusted it to 1 inch by that side. So just go ahead and connect it into the dart line. You can see the way I've connected it. So after that, the next thing, after connecting it, you are going to work on our collar. We are going to work on our collar. So now you can see, so this is what I have here. I'll go ahead and push down. I'll go ahead and push this down so that we'll be able to work on our collar. All right, so now you can see, so from the shoulder line here, I'll be going up by 3.5 inches. So I went up by 3.5. So just go ahead and mark 3.5. So you can see the way I've marked it. So I'll just place it from this point. You can see with the point I placed my tape. Then I'll go ahead and mark it. Then you're going to determine where you want your lapel to be. If you want it to be under your bust, you can see the line. So here I wanted mine to be under my bust. You can see this is my under bust point. So from that under bust, so you can see here, like I said, I marked 2 inches before. So I'll go ahead and reduce it to 1.5. So you can see me marking out my 1.5. So this depends on the wideness of your lapel. If you want it to be wide, you can use the 2 inches. You can use 1.5 or even 1 inch. All right, so now see the way I placed my rule, very slant. You can see, just follow my instructions, the way I placed my ruler from the 3.5 down to the under bust where I wanted my lapel to be. That's where I wanted the first button to start from. So from that 3.5, you can see I will come out by 1/2 inch. You can see me marking out 1/2 inch. So I will use a slight curve rule to connect it back to the shoulder line, like so. So you can see the way I'm connecting it back to the shoulder line with a slightly curved rule. Then after this, now the next thing is to, from here, from this point, you go up by 1 inch. Then from the other point, you can see where I'm pointing, then you go up by 1.5. So you mark it. So from there, you are going to do what? Connect it with a straight line. You can see the line is forming a V shape of line. Then you are going to, so from our initial 3, you can see this line from the first line, all the 1/2 inch you went in, you are going to mark 3.5 inches. Then you are going to connect the line like this. From here, you are going to use a slight curve to connect it into this point. So you can see, I hope this is very clear. Okay, so now I'm done connecting. You can see our collar has formed beautifully. So at this point, we are basically done. We are done. So now the lapel depends where you want it to stop. If you want it to stop at your chest line, then you want it to stop your under bust. Everything depends on what you are working on your design. Okay, so you can see you can as well use your shoulder darts. So this is me illustrating. It's not limited only to presence dart. You can use your shoulder dart, you can use your normal dart. So here at this down part, you can choose to leave it straight the way it is. You can choose to curve it. So depending on the design you are working on, there are some of these top notch collar blazer, you see the down curve. So this is how to achieve it. So you just go ahead and make a curve. You can see a design curve this way. So if you don't want this design, you can leave it to be straight. It's optional. Everything depends on the design you are working on. So you can see me trying to show you how to achieve this, but I'll be leaving my straight. So after this, now the next thing is to go ahead and do what, and cut it out. So I'll be showing you how to cut it so that you will not make a mistake. So you can see where I started my cutting. So you cut through, you can see where I stopped, then you cut the sides. All right, so from here now you can see, you see the way I'm cutting it. So this is how you cut. So this is your collar. This is exactly what you're going to be using for our collar. The only difference is that we are going to cut a different one, which we are going to be adding half inches by the side. So now all around, you're going to add ½ inch all around for sewing. So this is it. You can see the way I cut it. So now I'm done cutting it. So this is what it looks like. So this is our collar. So by the time we sew, this is what it's going to look like. So you can see the lapel. So this is the notch collar, you can see. So this is how it's going to look like. All right, so now we are done. So we'll go straight to the back. We are going to do what, cut the back. Go ahead and put this one aside. So I'll just put it aside, and this is the back. So you can see I've already drafted all my basic bodies. So this is my shoulder, as you all know. So for the neckline, I use 3 inch for the neck width. Then I will use 1 inch for the neck depth. So this is my 1 inch for the neck depth. So I've already marked out some of my basic bodies: the armhole, the shoulder slope, the chest line, the under bust, and the waistline. So these are the lines I have there. So from here I'm going to mark my bust point. So this is my under bust, this is the waistline, just like we did at the front. So this is it. So this is the bust point. So from the bust point now I'm going to input my nipple to nipple measurement. So remember, you can see I have a line, I have a ½ inch line from the beginning. I don't know if it's visible. Yeah, so you can see where I started from the ½ inch. I first of all mark ½ inch. So that ½ inch will enable me to give it a dart. Remember the back to have a very nice fitting at the back. So here on the waistline I mark ½ inch, just our basic dart. So this is the basic dart, like so. So after marking your basic dart like this, then you go ahead and do what, and connect it into the armhole to form a presence dart. So this is it. So for the presence dart, I extended I used 1 inch, so I did 1 inch or 1.5 extension. All right, so now this is our basic, from basic to presence dart now. So the next thing for us to do, from here you can see the line. So this is my ½ inch. So I'm going to mark ½ inch. You can see the way I'm marking ½ inch. So I want to go ahead and add a dart there. So this dart will enable our notch collar blazer to sit properly at the back. So this is it. You can see the way I've connected it. So just go ahead and connect it this way to form a dart at the center. Okay, so you can see I added ½ inch so that by the time you are joining, you will not get shortage. So after this, now mark your bust circumference divided by 4, then your dart intake, your sewing allowance. So these are the things I'm doing. So after that, just go ahead and connect. So I did the same thing for the under bust. Okay, so just go ahead and do what, and connect. Then for the hip, repeat the same process. Hip circumference divided by 4 plus your dart intake and your sewing allowance. Remember, we are cutting everything directly on fabric, so you have to add your sewing allowance straight up. There is no, you are not going to, we are not, there's no pattern here, so everything will be added. So you can see what I did as well, the same thing I did at the front by the side. So I curved that part. Then we are basically done. The next thing now is to go ahead and cut it out. So this is our neckline, my shoulder slope. Then I'll go ahead and cut out the center dart. So this is how I cut it out. So here, this is my middle dart, my side that. Then okay, now we are done cutting it out. I have to crop that part off. So here, this is our sleeve. We are about to cut out our sleeve. Then go ahead and measure your armhole, then divide by 2 where you are going to mark it. Then measure the length of your sleeve plus extra 1 to 1.5 inch allowance. Okay, no, so now you can see, so I'm still trying to get my length because it's as if I have to use all the length of the remaining fabric. So here I'll go ahead around 4.5 for my cap height, then my arm or sleeve length, short sleeve length, then 3/4 sleeve length. So from the cap height, I'm going to make a straight line, get the midpoint of the straight line, then mark something like S, like inverted S, you can see. So this is how it is. So after that, go ahead here for your sleeve length, short sleeve length. You are going to mark your sleeve, round sleeve measurement plus your sewing allowance. Then here you can see this is my 3/4 sleeve measurement. So you can see here, I'm going to mark it. This is the length where I'm marking, so I'll measure it and mark. Then I'm going to divide it by 2, don't forget. Then you add your sewing allowance. Then for this part, the wrist, so you can see where I measured it. Then I'm going to mark, divide it by 2, mark and mark, add extra sewing allowance. Then I'll go ahead and connect all the lines together to form our sleeve. So this is our basic long sleeve. So I'll just go ahead and do what and cut it. I'll be using this to duplicate another one because it's supposed to be 2 for the 2 sleeves. So this is 1. I will use this to cut another one for the other sleeve. So after that, then we'll proceed to the sewing, but I won't be joining all the sewing on one video. So I'm going to have a part 2 of our sewing. I'm going to show you how to have a neat finish, a very neat finishing for a blazer jacket using this same pattern. So after you watch this video, make sure you check back on my channel for the sewing of this particular blazer jacket. Okay, so stay tuned. At this point, if you have watched this video to this very point, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, like and share. Okay, thank you so much guys for joining me on this beautiful tutorial. So you can see I'm trying to label all my patterns because this is just make sure you label, especially the darts, the side and the side front and side back. Make sure you label it so it will not mix it up. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful tutorial. See you in my next one. Bye.